Okay. All right. Hello, everyone. And thank you for joining us today for a Toddle session on the extended essay, Best Research and Writing Practices. My name is Greg Slosek, and I am the DP Core Coordinator at Chadwick International in Songdo, South Korea. I've been an IB educator for nearly 2 decades. And during that time, I've held many leadership positions in the core. I've also been an educational consultant for the IBO and an examiner in both history and theory of knowledge for over a decade. I'm pleased to be the moderator of today's international student panel and hope you all enjoy today's session. So today's session is very much about tapping into student voice and to understand the strengths and weaknesses of established practices used to guide students through the extended essay process throughout the world. We're fortunate to have an outstanding panel from around the world who have a wide array of differing experiences to share with us today. Today's structure of the session will entail pre-scripted questions for our panel, which should take approximately 20 minutes to complete. After that, we will open the floor for questions from the audience for about 10 to 15 minutes. Please make sure that your cameras are off and your mics are on mute. If you have any questions during the session, please do not hesitate to drop them in the Q&A tab, not the chat box. Okay, now, with that out of the way, let's introduce our student panel. Students, would you mind please just giving us a brief introduction of who you are and where you go to school, or in Reese's case, where you went to school. So Reese, would you like to start?
Well, thank you, Greg, and hi, everyone. Welcome. I am, yes, Reese, originally from South Africa, and I graduated from the IBDP program at GEMS World Academy in Dubai, and otherwise known as GWA, and I wrote an extended essay in history that compared and contrasted the post-colonial regimes of South Korea. I'm now teaching in the beautiful coastal city of Gangneung in South Korea. Thank you.
Excellent. Thanks, Reese. Hiram?
Hello, I'm Hiram. I'm a senior at Kaohsiung American School. I've been in the NYP, and this is my 2nd year in the IB program. I'm originally from California, right now living in Taiwan, and I wrote an extended essay talking about how songwriters convey emotion, specifically in Lord's melodrama and Kate Bush's Hounds of Love, and how that ties into Lacan's mirror stage theory.
All right, excellent. Michaela.
Hi, everyone. I'm Michaela, and I'm also a senior at Kaohsiung American School, and this is my 2nd year of the IB program, and I'm originally from Washington, D.C. So I'm writing an extended essay, or I was writing an essay on history, and this was comparing internal peace in Taino society versus internal conflict in Japan, and how that evoked the various responses toward European penetration. So thank you.
Okay, excellent. And finally, Tarsha.
Hello, my name is Darsha. I'm a student at Pathway School, Noida, and I'm a senior. I've done both the MYP program and now I'm doing DP, and I've just completed a World Studies extended essay in history and literature, and I've examined the influence of a travel writer's historical and cultural influences on his writing style, and specifically examining William Dalrymple's City of Gems.
Okay, thank you, everybody. And let's get things started. So to start our pre-scripted questions, we have our first question, which will go to Tarsha and then Hiram. How and in what ways did your experience in the MYP or in pre-IB courses help you to have the necessary organizational and research skills for the EE process?
Well, to begin with, I've done the entirety of the MYP program, and I think the one thing that it really teaches you is to develop ETL skills. So those are communication skills, critical thinking skills, self-management, research, and even sort of social skills. And all of this really helps you in tandem with all of the other projects that you do through the MYP. So the person project, the interdisciplinary unit, e-portfolios, all of these other subjects really teach you, both organizational skills and research skills. And they sort of tie in with this idea of interdisciplinarity and building cross-cultural connections. And I think this is what, in specifics, inspired me to take up the World Studies extended essay. I think the one thing that all of this teaches you is both, designing your own areas of interest within your topic, within your fields of study, selecting appropriate materials, how to write an organized report, structure, subjects, how to call out subject-specific information, build your bibliography, develop these sort of organizational skills, both in terms of time management and the way in which you write, how to set long-term and short-term goals, build your proposal, and then of course, reflection and goal setting. So all of these are skills that I think the MYP program has taught me, and it's been very important for the way I've sort of attacked the extended essay.
Thank you, Tarsha. Hiram?
Yeah, I agree with Tarsha, especially when it comes to communication, because the most important part of the EE obviously is conveying your message to the audience. And I feel like when it comes to finding those connections within literature and also in how you write your message in your extended essay, I feel like the MYP prepares students very well to draw parallels between cross-cultural or literature across time. When it comes to organizational skills, I don't know how the MYP has prepared me specifically for those things. I feel like a lot of it it might be ingrained in me because I've been in I was in the MYP since grade 5 or grade 6. So I think a lot of it was subconscious, honestly. But like Tarsha said, when it comes to organization and finding research and especially drawing those connections, the MYP is really useful. At least in my experience, it was.
Okay, excellent. Second question for Michaela, you can go first, and then Reese. Different schools approach, rolling out the extended essay and providing support for students in different ways. What type of organizational support did your school provide for you during the process of researching and writing your essay?
Okay, so of course, like a ton of information online is outdated. So I was really, really grateful that my TOK teacher took the time to like compile this all-in-one EE slideshow. And I honestly really appreciated it because it was just so easy to navigate through it. And it had like sub-slides as well as slides. And it really just included basics of how to source, such as in-text citations, which I thought were really, really difficult, but it really turned out not to be, and just different exemplars of TOK or EE essays that ranged from like, I don't know, grade 1 to grade 5. So it was just a wealth of information. Something else it had was just how to streamline your arc, because I know that's like one really big question that a lot of students had, including me. And I think that was really, really helpful. The second thing was this time tracker that we used, and it was just this basic mandatory time tracker that we had to fill out like each session of EE work time we had in school. And it was just like, I don't know, dates, how much time we spent on it, and a little description of what we did. And that was a really good organizational tool. So both the slideshow and the time tracker were really, really helpful.
Thank you. Excellent. Reese?
Well, in my case, I believe the organization's approach to supporting my supervisor and I in the EE process was more hands-off. I think as a result, like from the outset, I found myself very much engaged in independent, self-directed research. So this meant it was kind of up to me to seek out the assistance from my supervisor, as and when I needed it. I also found that many invaluable resources, that is, those that provided meaningful evidence and answering the research question of my final paper, were collected thanks to the support to a large extent at the individual level from my supervisor. So for example, on one occasion, my supervisor went out of his way to organize a field trip to obtain relevant resources from a local bookstore. So I think my supervisor was very important individually. And then my involvement, through my involvement as a founding member and tutor at the school's writing center, I was able to seek out the guidance or support of the writing center coordinator, who was active in providing workshops on editing, citations, and revision, and that one-on-one support that, especially towards the end of the process, was very important to organizing that final paper.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. This question's for Tarsha. One of the things that I've noticed in my time working on the extended essay is that sometimes the biggest hurdle is the getting a focused research question. So could you talk to us a little bit about how you, in conjunction with your supervisor, came up with a focused research question?
Well, honestly, I think I've had the hardest time coming up with my research question. And it's honestly simply because the field of research that I wanted to pursue was just very broad and my idea was very vague. Also, you sort of, with the World Studies extended essay, have to balance both the category you're selecting as well as your subject choices. So, I think what really helped for me personally was sort of the guideline documents that we were provided, especially my supervisor, sort of sat me down, took me through all of them, helped me build a proposal form, then sort of, narrow it down, get to a focused RQ. And I think one of the things that was most important for me that she did was really take me through all the components of both the World Studies extended essay as well as all the sort of specific subject components of literature and history and what that requires. And all of that sort of allows you to build a very balanced RQ that allows you to sort of go into an exploration of everything that it involves. So my category was culture, language, and identity. So it had to sort of meet all of those criterions as well as history and literature. I think also another thing that really helped that we did at my school was the extended essay cafe, which is basically sort of this place where you pitch your research question to a lot of other teachers, students, parents as well. And it allows you to gain a lot of feedback. So I think that, with my supervisor, sitting down with my supervisor, building on that feedback, it really helped me come to sort of the final research question I wanted to research.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Okay. We are fortunate to have a graduate on our panel. And Reese is not only a graduate, but he's also teaching currently. So Reese, can you talk us a little bit about how the EE process helped to prepare you for your academic life at university and beyond?
Yes, I think reflecting on this question as a lifelong student, current teacher, and more recently published researcher, I think the EE process instilled in me the enjoyment and benefits of independently researching a topic of my choosing, right? That kind of ownership. And I think I came to an understanding that, oh, this is what professional research looks like, right? And the work that you need to do and you're required to do, right, at like university level and beyond that, there's a lot of enjoyment to be had, but also value to working with incredibly experienced, knowledgeable supervisor. I was able to see firsthand, be introduced to some of those tools required for effective research. And by being familiar with these tools, I knew what I needed and how I could use them to effectively conduct research throughout my university studies. So I think those EE skills are very transferable, to my particular university context, in focusing on education and research and education. And I think in terms of specific skills, I learned, how to elaborate on topics, in an articulate way, thoughtful way, and write references, organize long, structured pieces of writing. So I think I was able to learn that you have to commit to that, right? And you have to be able to do that over a long-term project. So I think my research papers in university were a lot better than they would have been without that experience behind me.
Great, thanks, Reese. This next question is for Michaela and Reese. The IB really emphasizes reflection in the process of doing your extended essay. Can you both talk about how reflection aided in the process of completing your extended essay?
So I basically had to write reflections throughout the process, but I basically used it as, again, an organizational tool. I outlined the tasks I still needed to accomplish, along with difficulties that I came up along with, throughout this extensive journey. And I feel like it allowed me to check everything off as I went along mentally. So I feel like having everything in writing and being able to refer back to your writing was really, really helpful. And it helped me keep organized, especially when you have to write like 4,000 words. It's just a ton of information. So that was really helpful for me personally. And I mean, one example could be balancing analysis with facts, which I struggled with so much throughout my EE process. So I was able to write that in my reflection and then just come back to it again and again to make sure, oh wait, like I did this and move on. So.
Thanks. Excellent. Reese?
Yeah, I think it's interesting because I look at it as like, what did the DP core really give me? And it was being able to reflect and see reflection as an ongoing continuous process, right? And I think when it comes to decision making, as you are like constantly considering different decisions that you make in the extended essay, it's so easy to make decisions without thinking about why you made those decisions in the process. I think I was able to kind of avoid some of the challenges and maybe pitfalls of doing things on your own, right? Like independently, it can be quite easy to fall into those. So I think reflection helped me make better decisions at certain points, but also it helped me plan because I could kind of see my progress and then try and stay on track. So yes, the DP core kind of taught me those things by forcing me to ask questions and often very critical questions. And I'm a perfectionist, so it's very easy to be critical, right, of what you're doing. But you can try and do that, because I think as one big takeaway from that for students who may be going through this, or teachers who may be trying to help students, is how can you maximize the value of critically reflective questions in the EE process. And I think if you keep asking questions at each stage, those questions will help you figure out if there are any problems and what you need to spend your time on at that particular stage. And then you can pursue them and find ways to deal with them.
Yeah, excellent. Right, reflection for future action. Great job. Okay, Tarsha, how did your school educate you on academic integrity and the scholarly use of citations?
But I think when we began our extended essay journey, of course, we were introduced to all the subjects and the various fields and what you could which you could take up. But I think the most emphasis was placed on academic integrity and the use of citations and building your bibliography. So I think right from the onset, we were introduced to how to build that into your work and make sure that that is something you place a lot of emphasis on. Besides that, we also were given these sort of academic honesty booklets, which were, our extended essay coordinator would email us every 3 weeks with this attached booklet. And I think that really sort of reinstated that every time I think I'd take a step towards, completing my extended essay, that would be something that would be at the back of my mind and it'd be something I could refer to. I think in addition to that, we also sort of had our school created these, conducted these sort of academic writing sessions, which were held by both our librarians as well as some teachers. And they took you through both how to structure your essay and how to use sort of in-text citations, how to, as Michaela had also said, talking about how to use citations, not just when you put it in quotations, but when you're paraphrasing stuff and you're putting in images, any sort of data that you provide, how to build your bibliography. And I think another thing that really helped was sort of the feedback we got from my supervisor and from other teachers as well, if you'd send them your document. So I think that really helped. And then of course, Turnitin checks to see, what is the amount that was plagiarized. I think that also really helped sort of instill those skills and make sure that, the piece I ended up creating was, use citations correctly and was academically honest.
Oh, thank you. Sorry, I was muted there for a moment. Okay, great. This is for Hiram and Michaela. We know that the EE is never usually a linear process. There's a bit of ups and downs that happen. So could you both discuss a little bit about some of the pitfalls maybe that you experienced along the way and what you did to overcome them?
Yeah. For me, the EE process was initially very smooth. I had a plan set in place. I had steps. I was reflecting often, and I just kind of, I decided I wanted to designate my winter break or my Chinese New Year break in my junior year to do research. And I feel like the toughest part when I started doing that was it was such a daunting task that I, as most students do, put it off. And I feel like the toughest part about the EE is that it might seem like such a big project or such a big assignment, but the advice I have for students, because how I overcame this was just going head first and just kind of digging into it. I know the IB wants us to do an hour a week, and I don't think that that is enough, especially when you're invested in a question or when you're researching something that you're so interested in. It's oftentimes it takes like a whole afternoon sometimes, or a whole day even of research. So for me, it was really, I had spent countless nights, maybe like quite a few days, really just spending 6 hours, 7 hours on my computer looking at different articles, looking at different sources, analyzing, coming up with my own interpretations of what I thought certain lyrics and songs meant, thinking about how I could connect it, how I could connect them with each other, trying to dig for sources that would actually help me, such as interviews with the artists. And it can be quite difficult if a lot of it is from the 1980s and a lot of the footage is lost. But for me, it's really just being the toughest challenge was to kind of get over that mindset that it's impossible to do or it's really hard to finish. You're really just digging deep and kind of grinding it out, even if it takes until 2 or 3 a.m. And you're really tired afterwards. But it's a really rewarding process, in my opinion.
Thanks, Hiram. Kayla?
So for me, like Tarsha said, formulating the RQ was the hardest thing I've ever had to do during this process. But I feel like early on, I knew that my RQ needed to be broad enough as to not be restrictive, because for history, I was looking into geography and culture. So just so many things. I needed it to be not vague, but just give me the freedom to explore. And like Hiram said, I spent countless hours throughout my days just scrolling aimlessly through sources, or what I felt like aimlessly. But I feel like the exposure to as many different sources as possible, like primary and secondary, really did help me in the long run, because as I was exploring and just clicking into things, I was constantly writing, making little notes on the side. Even if I didn't think it would help me, I still put it down, because who knows, like I could possibly turn that into something useful in the long run. And honestly, just to not be afraid to edit or delete, because at first I had the mindset that this EE process had to be perfect. So I would just go into writing and I would just like be so focused on having like the punctuation correct, but that's literally not even the most important thing at all. And I feel like just being able to be okay with making a mistake and being okay with going back and fixing it. Because honestly, I think the day before I submitted my EE, I went back and I made a minor edit to my RQ. So that just shows like it's ongoing, as Hiram said, and you're never really finished. But that's also the experience of the EE. So.
Very insightful. Thank you all so much. Okay, our final question, and anybody in the panel can answer this. If you were to do this all over again, would there be anything that you would change or any real advice that you'd give out? Open to the whole panel, anybody.
Well, I think I'll go. And what I'll say is that I think I've really enjoyed my extended essay and I've enjoyed the process as well. But I think that I think building on what Hiram and Michaela have said, I think the amount of time that you spend on it and the idea that it does need to be perfect is something that really plays at the back of your mind, and it's sort of continuous because you want to create this work and you want to have enough research in it, but there is sort of no stop and there is a certain word limit that you need to adhere to. So I think maybe that approach that I took at the initial stages, I think that might be something I would not do were I to do it now. I think another thing for me personally that I would really change about the way I approached the extended essay was my understanding of the way that I brought in bias in my own writing, in my own interpretations. I think you have to create a very balanced essay, but as a student and as someone with a unique sort of interpretation, there is certain inherent biases that I come with against the author I'm reading, the way in which I write, and that can prejudice my essay. So I think that really took me a long time to sort of sort out and really delayed my process. So maybe just an acknowledgement of the fact that this was something that was going to be an issue at the beginning stages would have, I think, maybe allowed me to maybe spend maybe a few less drafts or a little less time on it as much as I did.
Thank you so much. Anybody else?
So one more thing that really, really helped me throughout this writing process was just color coding my analysis versus the facts. So I just made the facts that I compiled, I just made it blue, and then the analysis I made red. And I feel like that really did help me see what was going on, because you'll end up having probably, I don't know, 15 to like 20 pages perhaps of writing. So just being able to see the difference there was helpful for me. So
for me, very similar to Michaela, I color coded all of my research, and I also printed it all out so I could visualize it when I was writing. I think that's a really handy tool. But another thing for students, I recommend they start early. Spend your summer doing detailed outline, looking for more sources. It's always an ongoing process, so you're never really done with it. There is a deadline, but it does take a while, but just kind of have faith in the process and trust your own research, and yeah.
Okay, thanks. Anybody else?
Yeah, I just want to extend upon what Hiram was saying. I very much agree that it can be a good thing, prudent to start early. I was so much interested in my topic and very engaged in the research, but I realized, it's perhaps the benefit of hindsight, right, that I really would have benefited from my approach to planning and time management, especially in kind of trying to integrate my research and writing at the same time. As I'm reading a book, I should be actively incorporating it, linking it, connecting it to my writing process, and trying to really strengthen those skills of organizing the research instead of going back. So I think I would have been supported a lot more in that endeavor if I had very well designed schedule, but also a way in which to, while I'm doing one activity of researching, I'm writing, and it keeps me moving forward towards the different goals on that schedule.
Okay, thank you all. I think at this point we can open up for question and answer. I'm not seeing the Q&A section. Sarah, could you come back and?
It seems that we will have to take questions via the chat box, Greg.
Okay, here's one. How many hours did you actually spend with your supervisors? Anybody? I know we're supposed to be, between 3, 3, 4, 5, something like that. But anybody in that realm or out of that realm?
Honestly, I think I pretty much stayed within that realm. Mostly, of course, I think I maybe it exceeded a little bit, but my interactions with my supervisor were mainly just sort of reading through feedback that I was given, and sort of discussions. I think it was more in the preliminary stages when I was building my essay, and as a I think that's where you really, I think, maybe need more time. Of course, there is a limit, so it's very hard to, I think, only have that sort of very limited amount of time to talk with your supervisor, build on that essay. I think we could really all benefit from a little bit more time. However, I think that if you spend most of that time sort of at the very beginning when it needs that structure and it needs that time, then I think it's easier as the draft sort of process to, just read through the feedback and work on it sort of independently. I think that's also helpful in a way because it really encourages a very independent approach, and you're sort of only getting feedback at the end of it. And it's not sort of, you're not sort of taking in ideas and building it based on your supervisor's suggestions. It is your work at the end of the day.
Absolutely. There's a question in here about timeline. I know that I've seen different ways in which students have approached constructing a timeline, sometimes a little arbitrary, sometimes a little bit more deliberate. Anybody want to talk a little bit about timeline and how you kept on task?
For me, I was really purposeful in choosing a song writing EE because I picked an artist that I listen to all the time. Her name is Lorde. I love her music. Every time I wanted to kind of get back into the feeling of writing my EE, I would listen to her album. I would listen to other work she's done. And to familiarize myself with Kate Bush's music, I would listen to that while I was exercising or if I was out on subway or something. So for me, it's the timeline kind of is hazy because I feel like it was part of my everyday life for almost a year.
Thank you. Excellent. There's another question here about methodology. Could any of you speak to like how you understood criterion A and the methods that you had to use in order to complete your essay? Nobody wants to take that one? How about Reese? When you were doing a history essay, did you feel like you were really prepared to do the work of a historian?
Well, that's an interesting question because I did, coming into the DP program, not really have much, to be frank, familiarity with history as a subject. In high school, I didn't take it prior to the DP program. And I, in fact, changed to history at the very last minute because another subject was not available as I thought it would be. So then I found myself in that first year of the DP program just completely immersed in history, loving history, and so interested in it. And it had a lot to do with my supervisor, so eventual supervisor for the extended essay, my history teacher. So I felt like I was not prepared coming into DP, but then I found a way to try and make it work and learn as much as I can about the topic and the interest based on kind of personal connections to the topic. I found a topic that was meaningful to me because, you know, South Korea and history are two very important things, but especially at that time, South Korea was something important to me through family connections and so on. So I found my motivation for that to overcome the hurdles of trying to become a historian, as you say, were very much from from the attitude side of things, but also by having a supervisor who was, you know, he had studied history, knowledgeable in that area, knew what was needed to gather the resources and what kinds of resources I needed to write such a paper, you know, comparing, contrasting post-colonial regimes was not something I could have done without the support of my history teacher and supervisor. So the support was invaluable. Yeah.
Great, thanks, Reese. There's a question here about a research question. Did anybody have to revise the research question or totally change it during the course of the process?
Actually, I did. I had to. I think I mentioned this also in my last question. I think bias plays a major role in the way in which, especially in a, you know, when you're doing a world studies extended essay and your subjects are history and literature. You know, just based on the fact that the city I was exploring, that, you know, the author I was exploring was writing about a city that I lived in. So I think that already brought with me bias in the way I saw my city, in the way in which the sort of travel author that I was exploring narrated my city. So I think I had to change it because I came with prejudice. So my RQ was at the very beginning, I think, sort of prejudiced as well. So to create sort of a balance in that essay, I did need to rework my RQ. I think even through the extended essay cafe and sort of all of these other activities that we did, I've had to change my RQ multiple times. So I think eventually it just sort of settles on what feels best and what you're able to answer and what results in a sort of comprehensive, balanced essay.
Excellent, excellent. Thanks you so much. Here's a question that I think is pretty important and timely. Procrastination and burnout. These are things obviously that happen in the diploma program. How did you all avoid both of those, and did you?
So for me, I made sure that my chunks of time spent on writing the EE didn't take more than 30 minutes. So probably 25 to 30 minutes each chunk of time. And if I was not feeling very motivated that day, I probably just spend a good 30 minutes or even 25 minutes just looking at different sources or adding stuff to my rough draft document. And then I would just take a break, maybe come back to it at night and maybe do another 30 minutes when I felt more motivated, because I really do feel like students tend to want to finish their EE really fast. So there's like, okay, I'll finish it in a week. So I will spend 5 hours every day doing that. But I feel like that is what leads to burnout, at least for me. When I try to study for 4 hours, I get so tired. And I think just chunking up your time really does make a difference. And also just, I think over time, you'll realize that every 25-minute period a day doing your EE will actually lead you to so much progress. Like you probably won't even know it while you're writing it, but at least for me, like Hiram said, it just time flies kind of thing, but you just need to work on it a little bit every day or every other day. So you can even set an alarm for yourself, put a little note on like your calendar to remind yourself, oh, I have to write my EE today, and making it a very routine thing, like part of your life. What Hiram said, just maybe 7:30, I'm going to do it and stick to that, you know, every other day, and just kind of write a little bit or just kind of get into that headspace. So
Yeah, funny enough, I'm kind of like the exact opposite as Michaela said. I don't like working in small installments. I get the most done in long. I feel like if I spend like 7-8 hours on it. So I did that. I spent a few 6-hour installments over my break, and I had a draft done. And for me, I feel like giving myself like maybe like a week or two before looking at it again is it's better, because at least in my opinion, it gave me a more refreshing perspective, and I could go back and make some edits, and I can keep tweaking it, and I can add more to it, and you know. But burnout is real. It's kind of a big issue. I guess it's always about mental preparation. Even if I knew I was going to do my EA, let's say like on Sunday, um, for me, like on Thursday, thinking about, okay, I'm going to do my EA on Sunday, I'm kind of visualizing myself at my desk. I'm kind of going through my notes and I'm looking at stuff, and I kind of treat it like almost like a game, like you have a basketball game before, and you're kind of thinking about getting to that right mentality and then attacking it. Once you're in it, you're kind of like, it's like boxing, like you're in the ring and you don't want to step out of that. So um, every time I feel like I'm defeated or I'm at a stopping point, I do take a break and I come back to it a few days later with a recharged brain, a brand new perspective, and ready to accomplish it.
Thanks. Great insights and advice, guys. We've got just time for a couple more questions. One I think that's really important is just getting started. Can you guys give us any tips on how you got started or how the school supported you in just getting started on the extended essay?
Well, my school started us off by taking us through subject presentations. So for every single subject for the extended essay, we had a different presentation. All of them were uploaded on a common Google Drive so that any student was able to access it at any point of time. We were given a lot of time, sort of an introductory session, and then a lot of time to just come up with the subject we wanted to pursue, write a proposal form, write a broad idea, then get assigned our supervisor, and be comfortable with that supervisor. So all of that, I think we spent about at least a month or maybe longer than that just on that process before we even entered into the extended essay or even coming up with the idea. So I think that really helped, set the tone for how we were going to approach it. Even to, like, for me personally, allowed me to see that, oh, I can, maybe combine two subjects together, two things that I really enjoy doing, and, take that as my sort of lens for conducting research. So I think that was one thing that our school did that really helped me out. And I think a lot of other students as well.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. Maybe one last question. Can anybody speak to their experience with the Viva Voce and what they took away from it? Wasn't that memorable? Maybe we'll go.
We haven't had our Viva Voce meeting yet.
Okay. Anyway, Tarsha, have you had yours?
Not yet. We're at that stage, so I haven't had my Viva Voce yet, though.
All right. Let me take a look. Okay, here's a good one. How did you maximize the time that you spent with your supervisor?
I think the key is just planning out exactly what you need help with. I think, as I've said, you can't base off anything of your extended essay supervisor. The extended essay is inherently sort of an independent research project. So it's only sort of for advice, things that you need just to be on the right track, make sure you're on the right track. I think that's when you need help from your extended essay supervisor. So I think one was just being able to set effective deadlines. For me, I think I had a similar approach to Hiran's. I can't work in short bursts, and I think that doesn't help me, especially when I'm engrossed in a subject. The way in which I avoid procrastinating is just to be able to, sort of finish it off in one leg and do it multiple times. I think that's what makes it enjoyable for me, because I can't give up doing what I want to do. So I think being able to send in multiple drafts and just being able to change it around on my own and having very specific questions or very specific areas that I needed help with, and feedback sessions with my supervisor, and just very detailed feedback that I would work through once or twice. I think that's really the key to being able to really maximize your time with your supervisor, because it's not like you have a lot, and what you do, you want to use it to the best possible potential that you could use it up to.
I agree. I think it's about flexibility. Of course, you have an idea of how your essay is going to go. You have it written on paper, you have it in your head. But when you meet with your advisor and you have questions for them and they give you new ideas or they give you new suggestions, I think it's about being open to that possibility. And like Tarsha said, you don't have to accept every suggestion that's given to you, but being flexible with what you have to make the best essay you can.
Okay, We have come to the end of our session. I want to first and foremost thank our panelists for taking the time and for everyone for attending. And I really hope that we all learned something today. And I'd like to, again, thank everybody for attending and good luck completing all your extended essays. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you.